Good evening, and thank you for all being here. This is going to be such an exciting night. We are at the very end of season 4 for Talking Food in Maine. So I want to say that tonight we have a very special guest here, but before I announce our special guest, I want to do a special thank you for Andrew Fenneman, who came into my kitchen 4 years ago and said, I have this idea. And the idea is we're going to talk about food in Maine. And I'm not going to do it unless you do it. And so here we are today, 4 seasons in, and thankfully, because of Christina's great leadership and Andrew as her mentor, we've been able to sustain this wonderful program, and also in part to our fabulous sponsors, Rising Tide Co-op and King Iders. And we had a really, really good dinner right before we got here. So we're all very happy. But thank you all for being here. We have our absolutely awesome production team, Gary Hawks and Damon Liebert, who are setting us up to look so good tonight. And we have one more very special guest, which you're all going to get to know sooner or later. And she is a very special girl, and she's her dad's ride and die tonight. She drove after a long day at school with her dad to come watch him in action. So Fiona, can you stand up and say hi to everybody? We're so happy to have her here tonight. There's something special about dads and their daughters, and she gets to watch her dad tonight every day, but tonight she gets to hear his story, and you get to hear his story, and boy, is it a great story. If you're here, you probably know why, but to watch Christian on Instagram, which, by the way, I would never encourage this in a theater, but if you want to pull out your phone, follow him right now on Instagram. It's I am Christian Hayes, and you'll know what I'm talking about, but you can do that tonight, actually. But for now, without all further ado, please join me in giving the biggest and warmest welcome to the one and only Christian Hayes, who took time out on a Thursday night. He owns 4 businesses, and gave us a Thursday night, which means so much to me when you are an executive chef and an owner, to share his story. So come on out, Christian. It's great to see you. Have a seat. Mics. All right. So, do you like this whole retro?
This is cool.
You like this? Yeah.
It's terrifying.
This coming from Restaurateur of the Year 2019. Yeah. But hey, we love this table. It's done us well.
The table is comfortable.
Yeah.
And the lights are bright enough that I can't really see anybody. It's cool. It's just you and me.
Hey, we're scared of your tattoos right now. We think, like, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to show us those tattoos?
Yeah,
you can go for it.
I got a lot of tattoos.
So how was dinner?
I am full of bangers and mash.
Yeah.
Like full.
Like full?
Yeah. There's a lot of bangers and mash.
I'm super thirsty because I ate a lot of skillet roasted oysters, and those were really good.
Yeah, they were good. I need a nap.
You need a nap. No naps for you, my friend. We got a lot to cover tonight. We're super excited to have you. So before we get started, I wanted to ask you, like, what is it about pork? Why do you always have pork on your brain?
Yeah, there's pork. The pig is amazing.
What's so amazing about a pig?
Everything. You can have, there's every single part of that animal.
Okay, tell us about it.
I mean, everything from the fat to the cheeks to the feet, everything. You can eat the entire animal, and I have many times.
What's your favorite part of the pig?
The cheeks.
The cheeks?
Yeah.
What do you do with them? How do you cook them?
Well, typically, I'll roast like a whole pig, and if it's like I used to do pig roast for weddings. Yeah. And so I used to save the cheeks. Well, actually, save the cheeks for us, but if you were roasting a pig for somebody that knew, they would always come up and say, "Can you
keep the cheeks?"
Yeah, keep the cheeks for me, and so we'd save them for them. But
is that true that the chefs in the restaurant always take the back of the chicken, that little spot?
Yeah, the oyster.
Yeah, the oyster.
There's 2 little nuggets
spot
on the back, on the bottom of the chicken.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's very comparable to like the pig cheek. Yeah.
Now, what do you do with the eyes? Tell me you don't cook up the eyes.
So we've all eaten one.
Jeez. What does that taste like? Is that like a gelatin?
Like an eye. Tastes like an eye.
How would I know what an eye tastes like? What does that taste like?
It's like, you know, it's just gristle and jelly.
Gross.
It's disgusting. It's sort of an initiation there. If somebody would, so I've probably done almost 100 pigs whole, which, you know, if you're a whole hog barbecuer, that's bush league. But for me, that's like, I spent a lot of nights shoveling coal, and every once in a while, you know, you'd have somebody with you, or they'd come to help you carve. Yeah. And if they were new, you'd pop the eye.
So you've had to have a horror story about roasting a pig. There's got to be one. Like, it can't always be like a slam dunk. So what's the worst charred pig you've ever done?
Well, so the nightmare is always, you know, like grease fire. That animal is filled with fat, like, and it's amazing, but it's also very highly flammable. Yeah. And when you're cooking that big of an animal, some of them are like, you know, dressed weight, meaning they're all, you know, cleaned out. I've done like a 225-pound hog.
It's like a human.
It's enormous.
Yeah.
The roaster was 6 feet long, and I had to cut the feet off, and the nose was pressed up against the front, and he'd close it shut. It was huge. It was bigger than me. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much fat. And in the beginning, I mean, you sort of learn how to roast a whole pig, like, you learn by books and whatnot if you don't have the chance to be an apprentice or something, but like, and then you sort of learn on your own. You figure out what works for you. And for me, it was turning the hog upside down, because, you know, you've got that seam and you sew it shut. Yeah. And if it's this way, all that fat's going to come, and eventually it's going to drip. Yeah. But if you go upside down, you've got that bowl of skin, and then all the tougher parts sort of cook in the fat, rather than the belly, which doesn't really need that anyways. Right. But prior to the flip over era of my roasting, there was that seam, and the fat would just pour out of it. You need to have a drip tray and everything, but once that hits, you know, 250 degree wood and charcoal, it goes up. Yeah. So how do you get it to be crispy though? So like, at some point you've got to stop basting it, I'm assuming, and just let it crisp out. So with the way that I was doing it, was like low and slow, 225 degrees. So the skin at that point, after 18 hours, it's not like a crackling. You know, like if you cook it quicker, then you get that crackling. Nice crack, which was the suckling pigs that I'm doing now. That's exactly what happens, because you can do that in the oven. You know, you could do it. It takes, you know, 3 hours. 3 hours, rather than 18. It? Wow. I cooked a pig with Kevin Gillespie. He's this superstar chef. He's amazing, and he cooked pigs with Rodney Scott, who's like the king of whole hog barbecue. Cool. And he taught me a way. Kevin he puts it on fire. He doesn't even temp it. He doesn't there's no thermometers. There's nothing. He just throws it on high heat, and it's done in like 6 hours, as opposed to 18 hours, which I wish I had known that technique. 10 years ago. Over 100 pigs? That's a lot of hours. That's a lot of hours. That's a lot of hours. And you're so scared too. You got these like high-priced contracts for like a big, beautiful wedding and this like festive theater of this primitive animal, and they're paying a lot of money, and just the pressure of having it like not explode or be like super dry, you know. Or like raining all over I've done it in the rain. The humidity's the worst because you can't get that, you can't get the fire going. Crazy. So where do you get your pigs from in Maine? Where do you source locally? Melissa. Yeah. Tell us who Melissa is. I don't know if you've heard of her. I don't know. Have we heard of Melissa Kelly? This is Melissa Kelly, yeah. She just won a couple awards and stuff. Yeah. She's also kind of sat on the stage. She was here. Like 4 years ago. Yeah. She was very late, by the way. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I was early. Thanks to Trump. Thanks a lot. Yeah, thanks, Trump. Okay. No, I was, for whatever reason, I have the honor of, she usually has 12, I think it's about 12. that she raises. And then they have Pig Day in November. And, the sad part of it is the slaughter. And then...
how do you make peace with all that stuff as a chef and as a human, and you've got kids and they fall in love with the pigs? It's like...
As I get older, it's actually kind of, you wrestle with it a little bit.
Yeah. We
had chickens, I think there's a disconnect in this country, especially like meats, on styrofoam and wrapped up. And it's just so detached from an actual being, from something that was, highly intelligent. A lot of animals, it's it just, as I get older, you wrestle with that, And I think Melissa embodies like that whole, the care and the, it's a noble way of raising an animal and loving an animal, and then respecting it all the way till it's on the plate. Even when plating that, there's a connection there. Yeah. And I think chefs have that because even when we buy something, we can reverse engineer that process, and we know. But it's weird. As I get older, you wrestle with it a little bit. Yeah. It's sort of like Eric Ripert was talking with Jose Andres on his podcast, and he said the same thing because Eric Ripert is a Buddhist, and they had this whole conversation about like taking the life, of a being for your this pleasure. Weird like status quo of pleasure, but they're so goddamn good.
So what did he say? What did he say? How does the Buddhist make peace with it? I'm curious. You got
it's a very sort of internal process, I think, of just your own sort of. Yeah, it's your own. I think everybody probably handles it differently. Of just coming to a point where you feel like you've respected the process. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. We just covered a lot of ground.
We did. We got right into it.
We got right into it.
Well, you look at that pig in the face, and it's like, I think about you winning Chopped, and we're going to get to that at some point. But that was all about pork on the brain.
It was pork, it was a pork episode.
It was like right up your alley.
Yeah, I think they did that on purpose. There was the three other chefs sort of had connection to pork too. So
yeah. All right. Well, you have a really fun feast coming up. So tell us about it, because you've got a captive audience here. They're going to sign up for your.
Yeah.
So do a shameless promo right here, and then we're going to move on.
All right, like a commercial.
There you go.
All right, and action. No, that's a suckling pig. So that is from Dog Patch Farm, and again, talk about what we just talked about. Suckling pigs are, they're small. Yeah. It's literally like suckling. They've only had the milk of their mother. Now everybody thinks I'm a terrible human being, but that suckling pig I cooked, and we're doing suckling pig dinners at the Garrison. We're just figuring out the metrics and stuff, so within the dining room and during service, but having a party of 12 with a family style suckling pig dinner, 4 courses. And
that sounds awesome.
Yeah, and that's one of them.
Cool, awesome.
Suckling pig it's interesting. It's a different flavor than pork. It's
very super tender.
Super tender, almost chickeny thigh, it's amazing.
Well, I've been eating them since I was a little kid. Yeah. That's the pig I ate, because in Goa, when you have a wedding on the west coast of India, like pigs are revered. So if you're going to have a wedding of any note, you better have a suckling pig, and it's the head staring you right in the face when you're a kid. And we never had the eyes in there, but we always knew that the meat was just melt in your mouth, delicious. So I grew up with that.
Very, very special.
And it is special.
And then going back to Melissa, it was just one of those things. It's like every year she gives me the opportunity to take one of her 12 pigs. So
wow.
For the last few years, I actually have half of one of them in my freezer still that we're going to do an event at Thoroughfare. But
that's awesome.
Again, like that special, it's just, it's amazing.
That's awesome.
It's amazing.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to get started here because we are very interested in hearing about how your life's been shaped, because you're very complex. I don't know if you realize that.
I'm complicated.
You're complicated.
I'm complicated, man.
Okay, I'm just going to put that out there. Because I don't know what's going to happen tonight. I'm just giving you guys, I have like a thing, but I don't know what's going to happen. Okay. So, like, help us understand, like, where you come from, your 7th generation Mainer, how that shaped you. Just give us some insight on that. And who is this?
That's my great-great-great-grandfather. Looks like a mean son of a bitch, doesn't he? He owned half of Long Island off of, in the Casco Bay Islands. And had a sheep farm out there. I grew up like sort of in the summer, spending a lot of my time out in Long Island, my great-grandmother's house, with my great-grandmother and my great-grandfather. They both lobstered for like 60 some odd years together. They were sort of, that was where like my first food and smell memories, it was her,
Was she a good cook? Like, really?
Yeah, like she had a garden. It was like, there were a few things. There was like the strawberry rhubarb jam, and there was fried dough in the mornings, just like, in the pan on the stove. She had these huge, just long Herculean arms. She was just amazing. And we'd wake up to that smell, and then the jars. I could smell it. You can close your eyes and smell it. You smell the metal cups that you drink out of.
Lard?
There was, and they did a lot of pickling. Like my great-grandfather, to me, it was like the nastiest thing I'd ever seen as a kid. You like in the shed next to like rusty, gardening equipment was this like jar of floaties and like pickles, Yeah. So I was all set with that. But those were the first sort of memories, was the working waterfront and the boat out to Long Island and the island, the smell of the island. Like I took my kids out there. It had been a very long time since I had been out there.
How far is it from Portland, or
yeah, it's
like where do you go?
if you're like on the ferry, it would be like 45 minutes or so.
Okay, that's far out there.
We'd get, I feel like the water taxi could be 20 minutes. You're out there. It's past Peaks and all those. It's it's right before Chesapeake. So, like back in the day, it was like just crazy lobstermen.
Yeah.
Like insane lobstermen out there. And Peaks was sort of the summer home island. But of course, those things change. So it's built up a lot more.
Yeah.
But the smell's still there.
Yeah.
It's a different world. There's like, back in the day, like you didn't have to register a car out there. My Grampy's car was like, nobody had license plates. I don't even know if they still have license. Like it's just.
Were you driving his truck at like 9?
I was driving a moped. My mom didn't. I don't even know if my mom knows this. I wrecked a moped. I hurt myself pretty bad, but I hit it pretty good. But there was just a different world out there. There were,
So cool.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was sort of, you read about, down East Maine and sort of like that island life, that coastal life. That's what we had, and it was only, 45 minutes from the city.
Yeah.
So I sort of had that one foot on each side.
On each side.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
So, you've had a pretty interesting relationship with your dad, and I want to talk about him because I know how much he means to you. And there he is with his big catch of the day.
Yeah.
So tell us about your dad. What was his name?
My dad was Rick. We had growing up, we were tight, and I grew up on the docks. He was a commercial fisherman, so he'd be out. When I was super little, he'd be out for long periods of time. But when I was sort of first, gathering memories, he was done with that, and he was just on the working waterfront in Portland, which is it's shrinking now, but back then it was the whole commercial street. And just running commercial fisheries, and like he ended up towards when I was maybe 12 or 13, he was just out on Long Island running a lobster company.
Well, that's cool. So he's like an entrepreneurial side to him.
Yeah, he was a leader for sure. You know, he was a complicated man, just like myself. Yeah. You know, when he was 17, the best choice that he could make was he went to Vietnam twice. You know, he just volunteered, because it was better than where he was at, which is insane to think about. I don't know if he lied to get in when he was 17 or they just let him in, but he did 2 tours over there. Guys, yeah.
You wonder how that affected him.
Oh, it affected, yeah. And his home life was like not too great either, you know.
Yeah. What was your home life like?
Home life was great, you know. I won the lottery in terms of friends. Mm-hmm. My mom. So my dad, when I was about 12 or 13, that's when things kind of took weird turns and we sort of began these separate lives, you know. It was a very fragmented familial picture. So when that happened, we lived in the same city. I don't think I talked to him for 12 years, maybe.
Wow.
Which is insane. And during that time, my mom just finished her 5th battle with cancer, which is ludicrous. 2 times before this current battle, she did the double mastectomy, you know, and then rewind that back to when I was 11 was when she had stage 4 Hodgkin's. So she was in chemo, and that's when the whole like separation started, and it was a mess, you know. But I won the lot. Like my mom was like, I mean, she made sure that things were, you know, that deflection, that maternal deflection of like, you know, I didn't realize she was sick upstairs. You know, I was just outside,
being a kid,
like burning GI Joes with a magnifying glass. You know, but
oh my gosh.
You know, yeah, she held it all together.
So what was your escape? Obviously, in the middle of all that, was it food? Was it music? Was it just going and raising trouble? Like, what was your thing?
You know, art, sports, getting outside. I again, like my friends, I had a group of friends that, I mean, we remain friends till this day. I won the lottery, you know. Yeah. They're the best. So I had this structure that if it wasn't there, it would have been just like the same old story, that self-fulfilling prophecy, that kid that just like, you know, shit was upside down and like just went the other way, you know. But like I had a solid footing. It was awesome. And you know, we lived in like this suburb. School was there. You know, like all the schools we went to, we had elementary and middle, and you know, it's just that neighborhood feeling.
Yeah, small community.
Yeah, and when we lost the house, and when that happened, you know, we were in an apartment here, and then a few years later we were apartment here, and it just, again, probably a lot to my mom's credit. Like things to me didn't really feel like they changed much. Well, it was to my mom's credit, because things were definitely different. Yeah. But yeah, music really took over in high school. Middle school, I discovered like Hendrix, and elementary school, I was so deep into like hip hop and rap.
Really?
And, like, oh yeah, like the stuff I probably shouldn't have been listening to, but they were like it just blew my mind. And so we would have just cassettes of all the old school hip hop artists, and then middle school was. Yeah, Hendrix and all that, all the Woodstock bands, and
And your mom like enabled all of that, I'm assuming. Like she really supported it.
For sure.
'Cause she just looks like
she is
a fighter. Yeah.
Yeah, that was round 5, which she just finished up. Insane. She's crazy.
I see where you get your strength from.
Yeah.
Everything you've gone through.
It's
pretty amazing.
She's and I wrote about it, but there's when I see her, I picture these 2 spines of these books that were underneath the coffee table in our living room, in the house that eventually we had to move out of, and it was this book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People, and then the other one below it was How to Write a Resume, and that was my mom's adult life, you know?
Yeah.
Like, Jesus Christ, the struggle. But, yeah, there she is.
Yeah.
There's me.
Warrior.
I look angry. I always scowl. I look like my great-great-great-grandfather.
Yeah.
Look at my eyebrows.
We need to put your face
Look
in
at
that
those
frame.
eyebrows.
Yeah,
Yeah. She held it all together.
Yeah. And there's always another woman that keeps popping up on your Instagram feed. Who is this woman?
That's Christine. That's my wife.
So tell us about her.
Like
when did you first fall in love with her?
Okay.
Let's just get right to the story.
So we've been together 21 years. It's over 20. We're heading
Time
towards 21.
flies when you're having fun.
That's
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
I had a crush on her. I worked at a bagel shop in high school, in high school. And she was at do you remember the Portland Green Grocer? Were you around when
No, I was in Mumbai.
Oh, okay,
I was in Bombay. Yeah.
Way over there, yeah.
Yeah.
So there was, it was sort of like the beginning of that's where all the chefs got their fresh produce and stuff.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was like the first sort of, at least in Portland, that farmer's sort of market deal.
Yeah.
And she was the cashier there. And I used to just go over and I didn't talk to her.
Buy carrots when you didn't need them.
Look at me. I was just so gangly and weird. And so I would just kind of it sounds creepy. I would look at her. That's creepy. But I would just buy bananas and then I'd be on my way. And then I saw her. My brother was running a shop in the Portland Public Market, because at a certain point she was just gone. Yeah. And then I saw her. She ran in to get her paycheck from my brother. My brother was running a spot, and she was an employee. And so within a week, I had quit my job to work with my brother. And and probably a year later, that was it. We just fell in love. Yeah.
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 That's awesome. So she's like your everything. She's more than just the love of your life. She's like your business partner.
100%. She runs all 4 companies.
Yeah.
She's like that.
HR, leader. And
yeah, all of it.
All of it.
I don't even know if I'd be around without her. Really. We've been through we each lost a parent. Very close. It was just a matter of years. She lost her mom, and I lost my dad.
I'm sorry.
And it's just, it was a quick, just bond that obviously, it's only gotten stronger. It's amazing. I just super fortunate.
And then there came these little ones.
So Fiona, I heard you introduce Fiona, which she was probably
your firecrackers.
So embarrassed to stand up, but Fiona and Cassidy. Yeah.
So tell us about them.
They're the best.
How do they make your world go round?
They're amazing. They're so brilliant. They're both artists. I thought when Fiona came out swinging, I thought she was going to be the wild one. And she was until Cassidy came along. And I was like, oh, what? And Fiona is a thinker. We have that same, very
process.
Internal. And Cassidy will talk to anybody, anywhere, and she's feral. She's
the mayor of Yarmouth?
She is a spirit animal. She's of many, I'm sure.
And it's so funny because these are not the photos I had to dig to find this because I thought I want to make sure when they look at them one day that they're, they love the photos because the photos I see, you posted them. They're not this perfectly poised. They're wild.
They're wild, and we let them be wild. It's like we have photos of both of them just covered in permanent marker. It's like.
But I think what I love most about what I'm talking about is the fact that they are in that restaurant. They are sweeping the floors. They are doing dishes with their restaurant apron that's going down to the floor because they're too little, and they're washing your windows for the Garrison. They're just in the thick of it.
Yeah, it's crazy that you realize you're actually create, there's such a thing as a restaurant kid, and it's like weird to think that you're sort of cultivating that, like building that within them, hardwiring it. And it's amazing. They see how hard we work and we see them see it, and it's just, Fiona's washed dishes, I think she's had to stand on a milk crate to work the machine, but, and now Cassidy wants to wash dishes on Saturday because she needs to make $30 for a toy she wants. So she's going to. Like,
That's awesome.
It's like, it's cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. And then we all know that she is dark, stunning, and beautiful. And she is the new love of your life. Tell us all about
Let me see her. There
Rosie.
she is. Rosie. Rosie's 125 pounds.
Yeah, 125 pounds.
Yeah.
Wow.
Built like a brick shit house. She is like...
Her head's bigger than yours.
She's got like biceps. Oh yeah, her head's huge. She sleeps in between my wife and I in a queen bed.
Perfect.
Oh wait,
queen
it's
bed.
ridiculous. It's you can't get rid of her. It's amazing.
I think she thinks she's your wife.
We have a special bond. So I flew out to Las Vegas to get her, and flew with her in my lap home, and she'd come up and just grab my, just tuck her down.
I saw pictures of her as a puppy.
So so she's from Las Vegas, which we had a list of names that the girls had come up with, and some of them fit the Las Vegas vibe, but we didn't. We went with Rosie. We had huskies for 14 years, and they're so aloof and just strange animals. They're just amazing. But anybody that's had a husky knows they're their own breed, and that was like my first real introduction to connecting with a dog. And it's so dramatically different than, I don't want to say your average dog, but other breeds. Like huskies are just it's a very strange relationship. So having this where a dog looks you in the eye and there's something there. Yeah. So that's Rosie. Yeah.
That's awesome. So now tell us about this other person that I don't even recognize in this photo. Who is that?
Look at those ups. Look at me. That's me. It's me jumping at the Civic Center. That was at the Civic Center in Portland, playing rock and roll.
So where did this life come from to where you are today? How
it was
did that happen?
a different life. It was definitely a full chapter. That's book 3. That was a full book. It was more than a chapter. We played for 12 years. We did a lot of touring and.
So the name of your band was Sidecar Radio.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And you guys were legit.
Had we probably gotten to the point where we were, had it been sort of transposed 10 years prior, the industry would have been at a point where somebody would have thrown money at us to put us on the road, But the industry had changed so much that, we were playing shows with bands I grew up listening to in front of thousands of people, and, you'd walk out with $150. People like that, the industry is just broken. It's so hard.
Yeah.
And constantly straddling cooking and doing that. And then...
so you were already cooking when you were gigging?
Yep.
Okay.
I had already cooked in restaurants and everything for a while, and then the band started to take off, and it was sort of just continuing, because surely $100 split 3 ways, and you got to cover gas and the van and the practice space, and it's you end up spending money to do it.
But you guys put out a few albums
we
and
did.
stuff,
We got some
seriously.
radio airplay,
Yeah.
and we had a bunch of records out, and it was awesome. It was like a dream come true. I got a chance to do things that a lot of musicians who probably deserve the chance more than I did. The people who I know them. I know musicians who are just phenomenal that didn't get a chance or haven't gotten a chance to play rooms like the Casino Ballroom and State Theater a bunch and Civic Center, and then, all the sort of the Northeast region. It was a dream come true.
Yeah.
And towards the end, it started to feel like a chore because we had a 1-year-old. Dandelion was the catering company. We had like 17 weddings in one summer that we were still playing music and working our full-time jobs, 40 hours a week, and a 1-year-old and huskies, fucking crazy huskies. So it was time, you know,
to kind
and
of
it was an
turn
easy
the
departure. Yeah, I mean, I think about it every day. Someday I'll play again. But
get back in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So tell us about Dandelion Catering, because it feels like that started a whole new trajectory and a whole new chapter in your life, not just for you, but also for Christine as a co-founder,
Big time.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big commitment. You got a kid now, and you start a catering company,
Yeah.
but you just didn't start any catering company. It's like one of the best catering companies in the state of Maine. So, how did that segue from Dandelion to being very successful to saying, okay, I'm going to go on Chopped, and then I'm going to open up one of the best restaurants in Maine. Like,
I
how
did
did
not
that
wanna
happen?
go on Chopped.
So tell us about Chopped. Like, how did that happen? It's kind of cool.
They do this thing where they go to like a region to sort of recruit people to be on that show, and obviously like Southern Maine is ridiculous. There's a ridiculous amount of talent. Yeah. But there was this like scout that just like called me a lot. And they were just like, I don't know. They just wanted me on there, and I said no so many times.
Why did you say no? I'm curious. Because you're like a front runner band guy in front of thousands of people, and you couldn't go in front of the TV camera?
Yeah, I mean, this one, I'd rather be. Yeah, this is terrible. Like being in front of people is terrifying, and I still continue to do it. It's. Chopped was, I wrestled with it because I didn't want food for me. Like, I was just worried about having like the element of novelty enter into something that I like really cherish. Not to get so meta about it, because it is like when you choose to cook for people, it's not a game show, and I just like it didn't feel authentic for me to be like put myself out there and like talk about how I'm gonna like beat this and that, and I can do this, and it just wasn't me. And then I realized slowly, like I had a chef that who I really respected was like, just do it, like you just do it, who cares? And I started, like, my girls were like, I was just like, maybe I should just show them I'm stepping out of, and I'm doing something that like, it's just fun, you know? And it wasn't fun. It was awful. It was really hard. It was a long day. It was a 16-hour day,
16 hours. So was it just like a one-day shoot done start to finish?
Yeah.
So they shoot the whole thing in stages?
Yeah, so they're in Harlem. You meet at a McDonald's at 5 a.m.
At a McDonald's.
Yep, at a McDonald's. Yeah, and the food sucked backstage, which is the Food Network. Like they serve like craft food, craft services. Yeah. I was like, what? So we meet at a McDonald's at 5 a.m. And there's the contestants and then an extra, just in case for whatever reason somebody doesn't show up or something happens. And that poor guy, he came from San Antonio, and then once they start filming, it's like, okay, well, see you next time, and then they send them, which sucks. It had to have sucked, but the day starts at 5, and then you see on TV, I don't even know how many rounds, 3 rounds, right? And when it was all over, it's like not 10 o'clock or so, something like that. I remember doing like the exit interviews and stuff.
Yeah. So I've always wondered about this. I don't know about you guys, but like, when you bomb something, like you do really bad, and then they do a cut, and then you're there talking about what happened. How do they film that? Do they film that after or before? Like when there's
after. So it's like they make you relive all your mistakes. And then they make you talk about it like in the present,
Right.
So like.
So like messing with your mind.
Yeah.
Like, did they pull them aside?
Yeah.
So you know you've tanked, and yet you got to talk about it.
You have to, like it just happened.
Yeah.
You open those wounds again. Yeah, no, it's the whole process was a bizarre introduction to sort of that, you know, element of the industry, which, you know, I'm glad I did it. They wanted me to do the All-Stars, and they wanted me to do Bobby Flay and all that stuff. I'm too busy. I'd rather just be in my kitchen with my guys, you know.
Yeah, you've got businesses to run.
Yeah, I got stuff to do.
Yeah.
But I will say, we had already sort of committed to the Garrison and the idea of opening that restaurant. And I knew, like, the publicity alone, it's like...
Especially if you win,
sort of,
which you did.
Especially, which I...
Right.
Yeah. I'm glad I did it.
Let's put the button on
I won.
that. Okay, so you won. And what was that like? Did you think that you did well, or like, do you think the judges?
I didn't cook well, in my opinion.
What was your dish? Tell us about it.
So they did, every round was pork. And it was some of the entree round was the hardest. And that was the one that won it for me. Because at that point, it's just you and somebody. No, the dessert. But the entree was the one that...
How do you make a dessert with pork? Did you put bacon in ice cream or something?
Yeah, they had, what did they have? They had fatback. They had mangalitsa, just beautiful. I mean, it's pretty much butter, right?
Yeah.
So I made a crumb topping for a, you know, just like a raspberry crumb dish. But instead of butter, it was all pork fat. It was delicious.
Like lard, basically.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
It's kind of cool.
But the entree, you know, they give you 3 or 4 things, and 1 or 2 was always pork, and they had a can of pig brains, canned pig brains.
Canned pig brains.
Not done. Milk gravy. It was in milk gravy.
Oof. That's worse than the eyeball.
It smelled like cat food.
They might as well just given you the eyeball.
It was awful. It smelled like cat food. And you take it, and it's like paste. It's like pink paste.
So what'd you do with it?
I made brain cream.
Gross.
It's like
What did you put
so
in it?
it's like when you have like tinned meat like that, it's gonna be metallic. You know, it's like a cold dairy helps. Lemon chives. It was almost tasted like pate-ish, you know.
Oh, so you like transformed it.
Yeah, so when I drained all the milk gravy out of it, and then I combined it into that, and that went on top of a stew.
Make you want to like barf when you like tried it? Like, what am I gonna do with this?
It's funny because the first thing you see when, like, on the production when you're watching it, the pig brains and milk gravy is introduced as people are taking it out, and the first thing I do is rip the cover off and stick it in my mouth because it's like you have to. You got to know the profile, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was like and they gave you some really nice pork with it, and huckleberries and salsify, which is sort of like...
what is that? I've never heard of that.
I had never heard of it either. When I looked into the basket, it looked like a bunch of twigs with twine around it, and I'm like, you know...
So what do you do? Pull up your phone and figure out what the heck that is?
Oh, you give your phone up at the minute you get there. Yeah.
No fair.
Oh, yeah, no. There's a giant clock, and it's ticking, and there's 12 camera guys in black running around you, and you can hear the 3 judges just talking smack, you know.
Yeah, that's what we're watching, so it's fun.
It's legit.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I started peeling. It's just like a parsnip.
Okay.
So I fried it, but... yeah.
Amazing.
Crazy.
Well,
It
what
was
a great
crazy.
experience.
It was awesome.
You know.
I am glad I did it.
Yeah.
And my kids watched it like 10 times.
Yeah.
You know?
You get bragging rights.
Yeah.
My dad did something with like pig's brain and cream and gravy.
Yeah, brain cream was
Brain cream.
hashtag brain cream was trending. The
That's
judge,
great.
they liked
Yeah.
it.
I feel bad for those judges, like sitting there eating pig's brain cream.
Yeah.
Like that's got to be not a competition you want.
One
to
of them
judge.
wasn't into it. The other guys actually thought I pulled it off, so thankfully.
That's awesome. So tell us about the Garrison, like switching gears for a little bit. Like, I know that you're heavily influenced by 2 people that I've seen you often quote. One is Anthony Bourdain, but the other is Danny Meyer.
Yeah.
So tell us, like, the 2 of them in terms of how Danny shaped, like, how did you get to kind of know him? And
This is my kitchen crew at the Garrison. Hold on. Oh.
Hey guys. We're live on stage. We're actually doing an interview. And we have like an audience.
That's my crew. Look, they're cooking. Hey!
Hey, thank you so much for letting us have your captain tonight. We appreciate it.
We can't hear you.
I think they're like
God damn it,
freaking
Sean.
out.
I can't hear you. Is everything okay? Did you burn anything?
Freaking out.
He's freaking out. All right. Oh, hey, April. All right. So we actually just started the conversation. See, there's my sous chef, Sean. All right.
All right.
I'll talk to you guys later.
Okay, bye.
Don't burn anything. I knew they were going to do that. Speaking of the Garrison.
Love it.
Danny Meyer. And
So first, tell
Anthony Bourdain.
us who Danny Meyer is. I mean, I know who he is. Some folks might not know.
Restaurateur. He opened. He's opened Union Square Cafe, Gramercy Tavern.
Shake Shack.
Started Shake Shack eventually. For me, it was his book Setting the Table, which ended up, being the book that when we first opened the Garrison, everybody got it, and it was sort of this. I had heard that he had this like philosophy on enlightened hospitality is what he calls it. And it was sort of like, I had heard that it was sort of the Bible on hospitality. And so when I started reading it, the first chapter or so, or maybe the first 10th of the book, was about his childhood and growing up. And it was very romantic how, he had spent summers in
Italy.
Yes, yeah. And so part of me was a little jaded. I was just like, this guy
blowhard.
really know how to work. And immediately after I realized that's it's the real deal. It's just this element of, it's very, there's schematics to the hospitality, but it involves, the individual and what they bring to it. It's like we're providing, service is black and white. We provide A, B, C, D, and E, and we do it really well. And then hospitality is the color that goes to the black and white. And the formulaic sort of layout that he puts into that book is beyond brilliant. And it just spoke to me. It's just it blew my mind, how eloquently it was laid out, with enough room for the person to take it and add their own color,
Right.
It's amazing, and it blew my mind. And so everybody was getting that book. Right before we opened the Garrison, I went down to New York, and I staged with a friend of mine and did pasta in his restaurant, and just to get back on the line, because I've been catering.
Right.
And I ate at a few restaurants, and Gramercy Tavern was one of them. And it was like this, it was a moment of clarity where you realize how the immense validity behind the printed word in that book. It was that book
In real time.
set.
Yeah.
It was the ballet of that book.
Wow.
And it was everything down to and I do it at the Garrison. Every single reservation, there's a button to Google that guest, and you find out who they are, and you try to cater the entire experience for every single guest to them. To them, you want to make them so they knew I was a chef. And I sat down, and the service was just unbelievable. And I didn't even get a menu. They were like, the chefs want to cook for you. Is that okay? Are you allergic? And they went until they were like, do you want more? I was tapping out. But just seeing that synchronicity and that ballet and that sort of put into, you almost think it's not attainable, and it blew my mind. And so that was sort of my, I adore Danny Meyer just solely on that book. Like, that book blew my mind.
And you've never met him?
No, my friend who actually I made pasta with does know him. Maybe someday I'll...
Careful, because he's going to call you right now. I set it all up.
Yeah, right.
I'm serious.
Get out of here.
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
He's not going to... I will tell you, when we first opened in 2019, there was a Manhattan phone number reservation. It literally
you told me this story. This
Danny
is a
Meyer.
great, yes.
And I called my friend in New York. I said, would he book his own reservation? He's like, yeah, he does all the time. I was shitting potatoes. Sorry. I was so nervous that, like, I wanted to deliver that book, when he walked in. And it was some dude who, it wasn't him. And to use even the Danny part, like, come on, man. It's toying with my emotions. Someday.
Oh, it's going to happen. He's going to get you. That's awesome. And so you're known to be, like, obsessive about details and just, like, every nano aspect. Like, this is just the bar at the Garrison. This is not the rest of it. And it's stage. It's theater right there. Like, from the lighting to the way the bottles are set up and the bar stools. And, I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. So tell us about how you decided, like, this is how it's going to go. The feel, like, what was it that you had in mind? Because there's so many aspiring restaurateurs, maybe some here in the room tonight or some who are watching this at some point. Like, how do you bring it from paper to stage? And you design everything.
Yeah. It's crazy because I didn't just, there's so many restaurants, and the people that behind them truly believe in them. And then there are the restaurants that are just sort of like this financial decision, And for me, that clearly, you don't go into the restaurant industry to make money. That's for sure. And so for me, it was about the authenticity and identity. And again, you get to a point where even after you're open, you don't know what the identity of that restaurant is. You could have planned it to be something, but it's a living organism that is going to become, whatever it wants to.
But like you said, it's theater, it's a stage, everyone's playing their part. So from you being maestro to all the actors, from front of the house, back of the house, the folks doing the research on the guest, everyone has is cast and has a part.
Yeah.
So how do you keep up and sustain that level of theater every night, whether you're there or not?
It'll drive you nuts. It'll drive you nuts. That's why we're all nuts. That's why there are so many
that's why you're complicated.
That's one of the reasons. Like even just that picture, I can see. So that's a paint stir. I don't know if you can still hear me. Sorry. That's a paint stir that I used, and you can see the lines on it. That was my 2 scale, and I drew that restaurant with that paint stir probably 50 times. And literally diagnosed each bottleneck, each width of, and like what the width of a server with a tray would be, and like the flow of the motions, and like all the way down to the refrigerator units. I literally drew what, based on my mock opening menu, where the mise en place would go, and how many employees, where they would be. It was, I felt like a madman, and in fact, the builder gave me an architectural ruler as an opening gift because they all, made fun of me because of my paint stir.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, so what is the experience? What is the brand and the identity at Garrison? Because you've got folks who are just itching at the bit to come and win that $100 gift card tonight. I know that's happening tonight. So, like, what is it that we could expect without being in there?
So, I will tell you, in the way that I was saying, like, you don't truly know exactly what it is, until it grows and it becomes this living organism with all these moving parts. And when I first opened, I was trying to figure that out, and I was trying to sort of not force it, but of course I'm forcing it, and I'm trying to, and I was I ended up turning into a chef because we were only open for 8 months and COVID hit, and
how long did you plan this for?
I mean, it was years.
And you closed in 8 months.
Yeah, and we had just gotten Best New Restaurant. We had gotten 4.5 star, like this, like it was amazing.
And there's your team.
Yeah, get shit done. Yeah, there are gardens. Yeah. And so we're on a river in an old mill building, and we sort of cultivate.
You're right on the Royal River, right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I realized in those 8 months that like I had, because of that sort of, trying to attain that perfection and the expectations in a community that they're very high, and the pressure. And then, of course, I mean, I'm not joking. I was working 8 a.m. to 5 a.m. 7 days a week, and all of that combined, it turns you into the chef that you never want to be. Like, and so like there were these just elements of I was trying too hard, thinking I wasn't trying hard, and it was just a mess. Mm-hmm. And then, obviously, like the pandemic was a perspective change on everything, on life, on everything. And towards the end, right before we had to close, I started to let go a little, and it started to flow. And I was simplifying dishes. I was cooking just whole branzino. I was like letting go. I'd stopped trying. And then the doors closed. And so...
And then you basically went from this beautiful garden with all this fresh produce. It's amazing. Those beans are gorgeous, by the way.
Pretty cool. Oh, those are my Mies.
That's your backdrop. I love the painting. All your cocktails, which were awesome.
Yeah, that was during COVID.
And I don't think folks know that you design like everything.
I do all the art.
All the labels, all the art, the entire restaurant.
The websites,
I mean, the fact that you can cook on top of that, bring brains and cream and all that good stuff. But like, that's amazing to me because that is so much of the voice, And then you win Best New Restaurant.
That was awesome.
Yeah. What was that feeling like for you? Because I mean, you'd obsessed over this for years, like you said.
It was validating. It felt really good. And that was obviously like a few months right before we had to close.
Right.
And that was when we were hitting our stride. And just the fact that like somebody had noticed what we were doing, and sort of focusing on all the parts that really mattered, that I really cared about, that I felt like I wasn't, pushing. It was awesome. The pandemic.
Yeah.
Oh, there's the pandemic.
I think that photo is just devastating to me. When I see you sitting there like that, I mean, what was going through your mind?
I mean, it was over, Catering company had lost every wedding. It's like we lost over $1 million that summer. And we were, the banks, when things are good, banks are good. And when things, I thought we were going to lose our house. We were going to lose everything. We were closed for 18 months. Oof. We were open for 8, closed for 18. Again, though, I will tell you, the pandemic was easier than opening the restaurant because I sort of thrived on that. There was this demand of ingenuity of having to I hate the word pivot, but like having to figure things out, I loved because it meant I could. So we started slinging burgers out of the Garrison because I knew I couldn't do takeout of what we do. And I just branded it in like Thoroughfare. And so I started doing smash burgers out of the Garrison, started an online market out of the Dandelion Kitchen. I was selling, when people couldn't get toilet paper, I could. So I was selling this online market of everything from like, you could get lasagna, wine, brined chickens ready to roast, toilet paper, gloves, sanitizer, There's a food importer that was upstairs from us, so I was brown cow parmesan and olive oil.
Was that Roger's Seats?
Yeah.
I love Carrie.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And so those two entities were born, and I was thriving in that. Like, I'll put in whatever, and then I was home every night at 7 p.m. I was like hanging out, I was able to like see my kids. So it was like this dramatic shift after 18 months of that, going back to the restaurant.
Yeah.
Of realizing really what was important. Those were when everybody thought they were going to die, and COVID was like, just starting out. We didn't let anybody else in the building, and so I was doing those types of orders every day. I mean, that's like what I was doing.
Now, were you delivering at that point, or were people picking up?
They were picking up.
Oh, because you had the catering trucks and stuff. I'm assuming you did all that.
Yeah, no, people came to us during COVID.
Yeah.
There was a picture further back that you had flipped through with all those tickets.
Yeah.
And I was standing there. That was just, those were the orders that people would put in online, and I would do by myself. There was a 3-day span where it was like, I worked, it was like 18 hours, slept for 4 or 5, and then I cooked for 26 hours straight. 26 hours, and then slept, and then did like a 12-hour day.
Wow.
It was like whatever it takes, whatever it takes. And I feel like, and I was very upfront and honest on social media. I was just like, and I feel like that sort of authenticity of just being like, this sucks, and we're trying. I think a lot of people sort of gravitated towards that. So
that's why I told everyone, you need to follow I Am Christian Hayes. That's why you're sitting here today, because it was
those
very
bags
inspiring.
are giving me a panic attack.
Yeah. That was some pretty dramatic stuff right there. Yeah. You're definitely an actor on your stage. But this was cool. I loved how you also then, took the focus off of everything you'd lost, and you went out in the same sort of vein and put it out there. You know, you helped out with the hospitals and
we did.
All the nurses on the front lines.
Yeah.
Now, tell us about Chef's Table, which, by the way, you should be on Netflix, Chef's Table. I don't know if they're doing it anymore, but that's pretty cool. I loved how you came up with that during the pandemic, and tell us about that. It sold out in like...
So, like it was like a minute, and we sold the summer out. So
in under 1 minute.
It was ridiculous. So again, we had burgers, we had the market. I started we had this giant parking lot at the mill. I bought this like $4,000 movie theater projector that I got for like $400 and a 20-foot blow-up screen. And we started doing movie nights in the parking lot. And while we were doing that, like all these people, again, this was like 6 feet,
apart.
Minimum. Yeah. Families would just pack in and tailgate with blankets and watch The Goonies and Back to the Future. And so we were doing that weekly, and it was helping push burgers. And at the same time, we were doing the Chef's Table. So like people would show up for a 10-course paired dinner in the garden. They would walk through,
all bistro
kids,
lights,
without their shirt on, just like eating fries, and they would go in and then through this, and then and it's like you're in the Riviera in that garden. It's like, and they would sit, and we would do a 10-course dinner, and we were doing, it was like, again, whatever it takes. In that Chef's Table, that garden, I mean, I built the deck, I built the stairs, the canopy with the corrugated metal roofing, the lighting. I did all that in like 3 days. I brought in garden rock, and I put rock around, and I made it into this like venue that was worthy of a 10-course dinner, Again,
I love how you set the stage. It's not even about the food. It's about...
It's everything.
Everything before you even touch anything.
For sure.
It's like the experience. And whether it's the movie theater side of it, parking lot, or like highbrow, lowbrow, whichever
we got
way
a
you want to
popcorn
look
machine
at it.
and everything.
The whole
awesome.
thing. It's like, that's awesome. So Thoroughfare was basically born out of a total pivot, and
pandemic.
It hit the note, right?
I call it my pandemic Donald's.
So tell us about these delicious heart attack burgers.
That's ridiculous. We did that once. It's like the ultimate, like American indulgent. I mean, that's gross. It's amazing, but it's gross. In quad we trust.
The 4 burgers in that.
It's ridiculous. Not there. That is not.
I mean, I know you call Thoroughfare like your pandemic McDonald's, but this is like a whole nother level of McDonald's.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, crazy. But they look good.
But yeah, it's this really nice dichotomy of highbrow, lowbrow. We're on like, you know, different ends of Main Street in Yarmouth, like literal like one end and the other end. And we got the Garrison and we got Thoroughfare. And it's sort of like this animal that is with, you know, that I carry, which is like this, you know, the thoughtful intent is there behind both entities. Where if you make a burger with American cheese and, you know, like, it's trashy, it's indulgent, it's like, American cheese is so good, and if you say it's not, you're lying. Is it even cheese? I thought no, it's not cheese. Yeah,
it's like processed.
But like those are the things that like I refuse to sort of let go to play the role of that. Like it's just I find it sort of
a lot of people can't do both well.
I find it elitist to sort of disregard like classic guilty pleasure comfort food. I think it's bullshit. Like I think like it's okay to say Wonder Bread is really good, and then serve like your own focaccia bread that you make every single morning in your restaurant.
I'm glad he brings this up because he went off on this rant on social media because somebody had to pay for bread and they complained about it. You need to go find that post on social media and you need to read it and know what I'm talking about.
Not everybody appreciated the post.
Yeah.
But
So tell us about the bread post. Like, why did you go off?
it was sort of a catalyst for a bigger picture problem that I feel like is sort of present in the, somebody was very upset that they had to pay for bread. And there's sort of this status quo in American dining where, obviously other elements, but like that bread is free and it's just constant. And that's fine, but a lot of the places that do that are getting their bread it's proof and bake bread. And it's delicious, but it's not fresh, and it's sitting in a warmer, and that's why it's free, We have a baker with this trajectory of acumen that, like, she's there at 3 a.m. Cultivating this incredible artisan bread. We whip this, beautiful butter, and we add honey, and we add Malden, and we add, herbs. And to get upset that that's not free, I think is so arrogant. Like, I just think it's not okay to, that's not fair.
Do you know
to pay, I think we only paid it was $6, and I know, like, $6, trust me, $6 is $6, but a lot of work went into that basket of bread,
Yeah.
And I just feel like that's sort of a bigger picture of the people undervalue the element of going out to eat and being served, And I get it. I don't expect people to realize, but like the number next to the item on that menu, there's always that cost comparison of items that they can get in a grocery store and that they could make, but you're paying for the entire experience,
right?
And you're paying for me to pay that bartender that can tell you 3 or 4 wines that you've never heard of, but based on your taste, are going to knock your socks off, and they know exactly what you want, and they can give it to you. And if you don't like it, they'll come with something else. They have that acumen, and you're paying these four people to, orchestrate this beautifully put together meal where all of your guests get it at once, and it's all hot, and it's all well made and well sourced, and you're paying for all of that. You're paying for somebody to watch your water. You're paying for somebody to take care of everything when you're done. Even just today, our business insurance went up to $3,000 a month. It's like those things.
That I'll never know.
It's an animal.
Yeah.
It's so much. The flood insurance. we're on the water. Like all that needs to come from that one number. That's it. There's no other place that all of that can be paid for, you know? And I still think, I mean, we're comparable to any restaurant in Portland, you know? But it's just wild. I remember, and you told me not to look at them, but I look at every review. And they're all just, we're so fortunate to have people that just get it and understand it. But everyone, when you get a complaint about a price, it's always like prefaced with, I know everybody needs to be paid well, but, you know, it's like, or the food was amazing, but it's just too expensive. And they'll give you like a 2-star review because they said it was amazing, but it cost too much. And I'm just like, you know, I'm behind on my Jeep payment. You know, it's like nobody's getting paid well. It's a non-unionized job, and that trajectory, that service worker, my cook should be making what like a plumber makes, because they bring that acumen that not a lot of people can pull off. A lot of people do it, but they can't pull it off the way my crew does, you know, and they deserve insurance and, you know, all that. And that stuff costs money, you know. Yeah. Oh, dude, I just went off. I'm sorry.
No, that's good. I mean, it's part of the education that, you know, we don't have when we come into a restaurant.
It's just hard to keep a restaurant open.
Yeah.
Those margins are just
really hard.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's a reason why you do it. It gives you a high. You love being there.
It's just you have to enjoy. I mean, I have the privilege. I'm able to see the dining room while we're cooking, and it's just like my heart is like every night. I could have the most, no matter what's going on in my life. I'm not even joking. I have had some really hard times. The minute the apron goes on, I'm not joking. Like, it's like when your kids on a school day, you can't get them out of bed. But on a day off, they're up at 6 a.m. You know, I know I'm going into that kitchen, so I'm doing it. Like, nothing's gonna, you know, it's like I'm up. And when you have something like that it keeps you going. But when you're able to see the people just experiencing your food, and I'm so fortunate to have the cooks that I have, to be able to pull off what we do and to watch the people enjoy it, because you really see them enjoy it. That's why you do it, you know? You have to truly enjoy giving somebody rest. And yes, they pay for it. But I want them to feel like they got way more than what they paid for, you know?
Yeah.
It's the most fulfilling thing I've ever done,
Yeah.
Besides raise these guys.
So tell us about this awesome handy-dandy Andy.
So that's sort of that fourth entity was the online market. And that is a store on the other side of Main Street that's been around since the 30s. Andy's Handy Store. And so it was sort of this community landmark. Just this like classic general store. And that's where in 2021, I was driving by and it had closed. It had gone through a few iterations of the corner store, but it was just sitting dormant. So I moved both entities because they weren't going to keep us alive operating out of the mill. At that point, things had started to go, and it was just like, we need to up our game, so we took those two. And then now there's an addition to the building where the burger joint is, and we're receiving pallets of groceries on Monday to stock the shelves. And again, I do too much. It's stupid. I redid the entire inside and it's Dandy's, so Dandelion. So that's the original sign, Andy's Handy Store. And my great-great-great-grandfather standing there with a scowl. That's the wine section that I built. I built like retail counters. We built a milkshake bar. So it's an old school. When you see, like, my kids go to school down the street from there, so they all rather buy, you know, they're dipping French fries. That is their version of core penny memories. Candy, of like that core, that Yeah, I mean, it's so heartwarming. I feel so fortunate to be in the middle of that community in such like a landmark spot. And so we're opening our doors next week. I've been saying that for 2 months, but like we're actually getting our groceries and we're gonna open them up. Yeah.
That's awesome. I feel like you and Christine are like the Chip and Joanna of Yarmouth. It's like that corner. I
Chip's
like
way
that
cooler
corner.
than I am.
I'm going to build that hotel. Okay. That's
Every
awesome.
time real estate.
But I love that you kind of branded your own products too now, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So you can come get some groceries.
Yeah, I
and
love like
snacks.
designing. So we're doing our own chili crisp. I did a label for that, and we're doing these orange blossom water pistachios and miso cashews, and we're
So where in the world do you find time for this kind of stuff?
I don't know.
I mean, I know you don't sleep, but now like
It's
you're like this, literally this bottomless creative like human. Where do you find time?
I
for
just
this stuff?
love doing it. Like when you like, I'll find time to do that. I just love doing it. It's sort of that chase of, creating something, the branding and like. I don't know. I just love the art behind it, and and I love the element of business and branding and marketing. Like I just think it's so much fun.
Yeah. Awesome. Those
yeah.
pistachios look really good. That chili crisp. So
chili crisp is
why should
awesome.
we get that chili crisp? How many chilies?
It's spicy, but it's not. It's more
It's not
umami. It's got that. It's got the crunchy fried shallots and the crunchy garlic, the crunchy soybeans in there.
And you're making this all in the Dandelion kitchen?
Yeah. And then we
Nice.
package it all. We've got our own lavash crackers. We've got our own, granolas. Our own. We do rip-offs of all the chocolate. We have Snickers and Twix, and we have all our own stuff that we make and then sell.
That's amazing.
It's cool.
Wow. Okay, so we're going to switch gears here for a minute because you have been come to known at Thanksgiving to be a savior for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I know this is going to make you feel uncomfortable, but tell us where this idea came from, tell us about it.
It's sort of that element of, again, and it was what we brought to when we were on the border of Ukraine, of it doesn't matter where you are, if you can supply the comfort of a meal, that is, there is so much power behind that. And, I grew up without, I remember a family friend bringing us groceries because we couldn't afford them. And if I have a moment or an ounce of energy to give back, like I'm going to. And so we started 8 years ago, Fiona and I, we had this idea of just like you can nominate a family for whatever reason for a Thanksgiving meal. So if they need a break, we will provide them with the entire meal the day before and everything you just pop in the oven. The turkey is the only thing that's not cooked, but everything's just like instruction based. And we started doing that. I mean, I don't want to do the math, but I think she was 4 when we first got on the van for that first run.
I have a picture of that.
She's been doing
it.
She's been doing it with me every year. And it's all confidential. We call them and we let them know that they've been nominated. And
You got some amazing letters.
It's
nominating
intense.
letters.
It's intense.
Yeah.
And you run into people later on. I remember I was closing the Garrison. It was like really late that first year we opened, and a woman was in the parking lot, but her son had committed suicide, and we fed her family that year, and she hadn't seen me since, and it was just like that tangible human connection was like somebody lost their daughter to cancer, and when I called her, she just talked about her daughter for a half hour. I just listened, and it's not all deaths, it's financial. There was one where this family wasn't going to do Thanksgiving. Their father was passing away, and all the kids, and the mom, they just weren't going to do it. They got nominated. I called them, and they decided to do it. And then she ended up hitting me up like a year later, and it was like he died very, very shortly after, and it was like their last
Meal together. And I love that, but beyond that, like you put even more meals out. Like they can just come and grab them on top of the delivery.
Yeah, if there's extra stuff, we put them in coolers, and just I put the word out, and then they're always gone.
Yeah.
All that stuff is gone.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So here in Yarmouth, like you're giving back as much as you can, but then, you know, the donuts.
Oh yeah, we do. We get donuts. We get donuts every year.
But, you know, recently you went to the World Central Kitchen. So tell us how that all came around, and who are we looking at here?
That's
Tell us a
Jose
little bit.
Andres,
Who's that?
Michelin star chef. I think he's got 26 restaurants at this point. The most genuine person, chef, person, humanitarian. He started an organization called World Central Kitchen, and it was wherever there's a need, wherever they want to be the first boots on the ground if people are hungry. And it started out as environmental catastrophes, Haiti, and then the wildfires, Puerto Rico. Ukraine was the first sort of humanitarian crisis. And when shelling started in Ukraine, they were there immediately. And so I hopped on a plane and I went.
And you were like the only chef from Maine.
Yeah, I think eventually people made their way over. There were a lot of people that came out to me at the restaurant like months later and said they had seen the story or whatever, and they went because of it. And so that was just
great.
like, I didn't do any press, didn't tell anybody, and then people caught wind, and I realized that people kind of, it's like Mr. Rogers said, look for the helpers. You know, when things are bad, you look for the helpers. And I figured at least I could just tell the story of what these people were doing, you know.
So tell us what they were doing. Like, what was that like for you there? I mean, these are all nice, sweet photos, but I know there's a lot of struggle behind all that, and
Yeah, so those are
massive.
paella pans the size of automobiles. And we would, that, believe it or not, which is sobering alone, that's baby food. That's like,
Oh, wow.
yeah, that's,
It's like carrot puree or something.
yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, we would make, it was basically, you know, the whole goal is we don't want to go over there and make them food that we think is good. We want to make them food that they know. And we want to make food that, it's funny, we had to dial back flavor. You know, like we had like, they liked things separate. They liked, but you want to give them what comforts them. You know, we were pushing out 10,000 meals a day.
Wow.
All the way down to just like hot chocolate at the border, to soups, borscht, you know. It was intense. And the whole, you know, there was a group of chefs and then the volunteers, and the group of chefs would get the groceries. They come in on a jetliner. And it's whatever you can get. Jose will go down to the farmer, because you want to use the local economy, so he'll go down to the farmer's market. He literally bought, it was all these old Polish women, the entire farmer's market, loaded it up and bring it back. We would go into corner stores and just grab everything if we needed something. And we would pay for it. Sounded like, my
Those
day,
Americans.
my day would start. I did a banana bread.
Yeah.
It started by peeling 1,000 bananas. We did 75 hotel pans worth. I mixed the batter in one of those paella pans. It was, yeah.
I mean, just like the cleanup of all of that, so you can start all over again.
The
I mean,
logistics,
just all of
of it.
that. It's amazing. So how many hours a day were you on your feet doing that? And pretty much the whole time?
Yeah.
So you kept a journal when you were there, and you basically, we saw a lot of that on social. And you also you called it Sweet Ukrainian COVID.
I did get COVID.
So of all the things, you leave your family, you leave your businesses, which are struggling also, to go do this, and then you get COVID.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
It was crazy. I mean, we all knew we were probably going to get it. There was this converted, empty, big box store that had 7,000 beds in it.
Oh my gosh.
And there wasn't a single mask, you know. We had bigger fish to fry.
Is that where you guys were all just sleeping?
That's where they were as many refugees as, you know, could fit in there.
Yeah.
It was intense. It was beyond. I think about it every day. But Jose too. I mean, he'd put on a Kevlar helmet, and like he was on when they were shelling the east. Like, I mean, he was over there feeding bomb shelters. Literally, this Michelin star chef unloading hotel pans of food, like the real deal. And if you've ever heard him talk about food, God, that accent. I could listen to him, like his podcast, like he is so out of control and just beautiful. And he is, yeah.
So you did something very cool, which we're not even sharing, but you told us your restaurant itself that was struggling with just keeping your margins going was also donating money to this, and you started a...
Yeah, when we were over there, when I was over there, we did small plates for Ukraine while I was gone, and so yeah, we raised like 10 grand in the restaurant. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
I'd like to go back sometime.
Any interesting stories you want to tell us about Annalisa on the plane?
Oh, the old one?
Oh, actually, no. This is a funny one. So I printed this because I thought it was hilarious. This is you. You want to read that quote?
Oh,
right there?
God.
Last quote.
In that airport in D.C., I found myself paying the bill at a random bar with terrible food. And I remember looking at the logo. So, yeah, again, design. I love design. I remember looking at the logo hanging above me on the sign. It was written in papyrus font. And I remember thinking that I had entered into a binding contract for massive diarrhea later in the minuscule plain toilet. That's the reach of papyrus. It's dangerous, and you must act accordingly. I can only imagine there is one additional circle of hell that contains a restaurant who has a logo in Comic Sans, and if you dare eat at that one, you might as well call your next of kin while laying plastic sheets out across your bathroom floor. That's...
I love how you find the humor in all of it, although you probably didn't think that was funny, but I read it and I laughed.
It was
out
fine.
loud.
I just
thought it was hilarious. Yeah, yeah. And there were some other very heartfelt posts as well. But so, you know, I think what's really cool about this is at the end of the day, like we had the scene, and we're talking about food in Maine. You know, we're talking about Maine food. And there's some really big heavy hitters in Maine. You've got Aaron French, Melissa Kelly, you've got these great friends of yours, right? And they drop everything to come and help you out. And I know you would do the same, but tell us a little bit about that whole chef ethos here in Maine. Why is it like that? And you guys are all competing for market share, customers, but you all love each other and you all have each other's backs.
I'm so inspired by those guys. That's Erin. She came and did Valentine's Day, just worked the pass. Yeah. Melissa. Honestly, it's these women like Krista too from Bresca, Desjardins. Like these, they're just inspirations. I'll tell you, with Melissa, you look at the climate even over, you know, the last couple decades. Farms closing and restaurants closing.
Yeah.
And this woman is on year 24 of operating an enormous farm, coupled with an enormous restaurant, and she's still here. It's you know, a quarter of a century later. Yeah. Just inspiring as there she is, the Fiona and Cass, feeding pigs. We were feeding them cupcakes, I think. There's that community with Melissa. Specifically, I find I can express this fatigue and this doing, you know, what she's on another level, but we're doing the same thing in terms of these poignant moments and these like terrible moments where it's a very isolating and unforgiving sort of position that you force yourself into, where you have 45 different people that have 45 different expectations, and you really want to please every single person on that staff. And if you don't meet some expectations, then there's some sort of resentment, and like balancing those human beings while trying to master a craft with the expectations from the diners as well. It's a very isolating, you know that other people really can't understand what you're feeling, and I'm sure you can transpose that feeling to any other thing that somebody else, it could be something else, but for me it's cooking and running a restaurant, and that was the connection with Melissa, is that I could text her at 3 a.m. sitting in my dining room having a glass of chocolate, and just I'm broken, and she's right there with me, that camaraderie, and you kind of share in that isolation and the joys and the struggles, and you can laugh at all of it, and you can having somebody that's sort of like right next to you that you respect is, again, I won the lottery. I won the lottery with Melissa.
And if we could all look that good at 63. She's 63.
That's ridiculous.
And she's proud of it. And I love that.
She is the queen. She's the queen. She is the queen of Maine cooking. And it's always so surprising when I get a young buck that really doesn't know much about Primo. And I'm just, I got to educate him. There's a video online. I'm just like, you got it. Yeah. She is the queen, and everybody needs to know it.
And she's super humble about it, too.
Yeah.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
So we are not just looking forward to pig suckling dinners, but what you call your journal, which is actually a book.
Yeah.
So beyond everything that's going on, where in the world have you had time to write this book? And I read almost all of it.
I sent you a lot.
You did send me a lot.
You're one of the only people.
And I sat there, I howled, I cried, I laughed, and this was where everyone was watching something else, and I just read it. And I honestly, I thought, there's no way I can read this whole thing. And I could not stop. From Bagel Boy and Produce Girl, which is the two of them and how they met, it just went on, and I loved how you themed it out. So tell us, what sort of brought this book together, and when can we expect it out on the market?
Oh God, who knows? It's awesome. It began as this cathartic thing. Yeah. Of just writing, and then I started to notice I was compiling it sort of in little compartments, and blurry time. I don't do too well with specific timelines. It's mainly just moments. Eras and moments, and so I honestly don't know why anybody would want to hear my stories. I find it incredibly strange, but I realize there are I've gotten to the point now where there are some things that have a resounding effect with people, and they let me know, and that to me is something that I had a really hard time sort of being okay with, because who am I, But then I started to realize people really appreciated some of the things I was saying. And so I just continued to do it and continued to write. And all of a sudden I had 30,000 words. And then I started to realize, okay, why not?
But what I loved about the writing, and I definitely had some of it here today if you want to read some, but I just loved that I was able to be in those veneers, like you said, these little paintings, these mosaics you put together in the book, and still kind of piece them all together in my head and go, wow, what a life. And you've got a long life ahead of you.
There's a lot in
but it was pretty amazing. And so your talent to write like that is just, you're living a pretty complicated life, but then to be able to articulate it and put it on paper. And just the sounds, there was this whole scene with the rolling pin and how you wanted to kill the freaking thing. You were so angry. And just the entire scene could be the opening scene of a movie. It was amazing. So how are we going to be able to get this book? Is this going to be published?
Oh, look at those fish.
Yeah. So you got cod there?
Yeah, yeah, Gulf of Maine cod.
Yeah.
So I'm in talks with a few people. I'm sort of just like, it's sort of like chopped and waiting for somebody to be like, you got to put this out.
Yeah. I'm telling you.
I know it's
You
very
gotta put it
validating
out.
to hear your feedback when
No,
you
it
wrote me
was
about it.
amazing.
It felt really.
Yeah.
I respect your opinion very much.
So can I ask you something? When you decide what's on the menu, how does that make it on the menu? How do you figure out what's going to be the Garrison tonight? Like you said, it's this growing organism, right?
I just love the spontaneity of it. I really do. Like, I don't labor. If you go to the next slide, that's that.
Yeah, tell us what that wonderful brain-looking thing is.
Fish sperm.
Okay.
Not joking.
Yeah. So how did you decide that was going to be on the menu?
They were selling it.
You remind me of Barton Seaver, because that's kind of what he said he got stuck with one day, and he had to make out with it.
Deep fried it,
Yeah.
buffalo. It was awesome. It was good tasting sperm.
And some really good.
It was good.
Hi, the specialist for today are some good tasting sperm, fish sperm. Yeah.
It's so with fish too. This came from Gulf of Maine sashimi. Very sustainable. They monkfish, cod. We use the bones and spines to make stock. And this was a little much. This was 2019, Christian. I've simplified a little bit, but I was taking chances. It was really good. But yeah, I love the spontaneity of it. I love, like, if somebody wants me to cook something at their house or like even at our house, like just going through the cupboards, and just like.
It's like your chop basket.
I love it.
Figuring it out.
Yeah.
I love that. That's art on a plate. I mean, that's almost a little too pretty to eat.
That is octopus, Spanish octopus. And they actually tenderize it. They have these, the company started out tenderizing because you got to either slap it on the rocks and you catch it, or you beat it, after it's dead. You don't beat it to death. And you beat it to tenderize it, or else you get that rubbery, But with this company in Spain, they started out putting them in this slurry of salt water in washing machines. It would just knock them around. And now they have their own machines that they made. It's the best octopus I've ever had, ever. So it's braised octopus,
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
These look beautiful.
Cured egg yolks.
So how would you use that?
You grate it. So you cure them in the salt for like 2 weeks.
And is it a particular kind of salt that you go
kosher.
with? Just regular kosher salt?
And then you hang them like you would a piece of meat. So you put them in cheesecloth and hang them in the fridge for another week. And then you grate it like you would Parmesan.
Like Parmesan cheese.
And it's just this like earthy, a yolk is like, I serve yolk and mushrooms. That's it, for that Basque dish. But it's just straight umami, just like, round. And it just like, you do that on top of anything, a salad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's why I come to the Garrison, because I want Parmesan eggs.
Yeah.
Like grated eggs. That's pretty cool. That's a beauty of nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hen of the woods.
Hen of the woods. That's like 30 pounds or something?
Yeah. That's an expensive mushroom.
Ooh. So like everyone goes on and on about truffles, but like that's stunning.
That was amazing, especially because that was during the chef's table, and that sort of base of that. It's a steak, and so we actually marinated steak. Like
so
we made a steak sauce and had mushroom steak.
How do you do you wash, like you're not supposed to wash mushrooms?
Yeah,
so
you gotta
use
use a brush and get rid of all that. You have to be because you don't want to wash your mushrooms, because they'll retain that water. So you want to either use like a damp cloth, but it's like a brain. Like you're going into all these little channels. Cool. That's something maybe I'll have somebody else do. I've done it. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love this picture of you on the line. I think that's very cool. So what do you like on the line? Are you one of those quiet chefs, head chefs, or are you one that's just obscenity after just to get the relief?
Well, I swear a lot. Anyways,
like what's your style? Because none of us are back there with you.
So when I first started, I was on the pass doing that, directing the team. I missed cooking.
Did you?
And so I'm on the line now. I expedite from the pass. I have like 2 pickups that I do, and still expedite and control the team. But I just I don't know. I just feel like it's a cop out for chefs to just like hold a clipboard and then tell everybody what to do. I want to cook, you know. And when I'm not there, like even right now, I have FOMO. Like I'm missing out, you know. And I want to lead from the front. I want to be there. I clean I clean my burners at the end of the night with them, you know. It's like
Melissa does dishes in the back. I've seen her do that.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, she's the last one out.
Right before we opened the Garrison, I did a stage with her on her pass just to hang out, just to get that. And yeah,
it's crazy.
Just like any other restaurant, the dishwasher doesn't show up, and there's a 2-time Beard Award winner just jumping in doing dishes, you know.
I've
humbling.
seen her. Yeah, do them.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Amazing. So, okay, so here we go.
Oh.
April Fools, and you had everybody fooled for the minute while we were reading this. Do you want to read us?
I was very uncomfortable putting these out.
The menu of all menus. Read us through this, because this tells me...
This went viral on Reddit.
Yes, it did, because it was pretty crazy. You're allowed to look back and read.
So we put this out, and I was cringing watching people, like the servers weren't saying anything, and they would put it down in front of them, and you would just watch this like utter confusion, and they would look at each other, and it hurt, but I knew the payoff was, and if they didn't get it, then screw them. But mayonnaise sandwich was number 1, which is awesome. That's not even really a joke. I love mayonnaise sandwiches. Raw sardines on a bed of cottage cheese with way too much salt on it. Chicken tartare. Don't order this, for the love of God, don't. There's pan blackened condor. We leave the feathers on, so this dish is a hot mess, super burnt. Turtle soup, you actually don't eat this. It's alive and you have to take it home because it's yours now. The unchucked oysters is my favorite. It just says, figure it out.
So keep reading them.
Oh, okay,
you need to go all the way to the end. Yeah.
Vegetarian ox meat. This is a pile of actual ox meat for the vegetarians to look at and hate. Poisonous blowfish. We have no idea what we're doing and how to safely serve this, so it's free. Just gluten, served in a syringe for fastest ingestion possible. Grandma's banana bread. She passed away in 1988, but we just found a loaf in her chest freezer. /thawed. Thoughts and prayers, an empty plate, $1,000.
That's the best one.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'm so glad you have that. That's awesome.
I think that has to go into your book. That's hilarious.
Oh, this is great.
Yeah. You're great.
You're great, Cherie.
You're great. That was awesome.
Cool.
But I just thought we'd get, we've talked some heavy stuff tonight, so we just needed a load off.
Yeah, I love it.
We just needed to end on a note. So I'm going to pass it over to our wonderful audience today that dropped everything like you did to be here.
Yeah,
I'm curious if they have questions. What do you think? Should we do a bit of a Q&A?
Sure, whatever
All right,
works.
so the rule is you repeat the question so that we can all hear
everybody
it.
Can hear it.
So who has a question that I did not ask tonight of Christian?
I just want to say thanks to, I expected nobody to be here, so that's really cool that you guys are here.
He's awesome.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, he kept saying, is anyone going to show up for me? I don't know.
I don't really know.
Hi.
Hey there. Thanks a lot for sharing. It was really cool. I sort of have a few really quick questions, but you got to it. I was wondering what your demeanor was like in the kitchen. And so the ancillary question is, how has your demeanor changed over maybe the past decade in the kitchen as a leader? 2, this is a rough subject, but I think one of the things the pandemic taught a lot of us is maybe how to cook.
For sure.
Source foods and to think about food more thoughtfully. And I know in Maine, a lot of us have the choice to actually, skip the supermarket and go direct producer to consumer. But I wonder if too small to fail is really going to work. And I wonder, you know, I just found out, I think the number might be wrong, but the CEO of TGIF Friday says that their clientele are all the people who went to like the step-up restaurants, and their regular clientele is gone, so people are paying down. Not in a Melissa Kelly restaurant or one of your restaurants. I was wondering what you think about paying everybody front of house, back of house the same amount.
Yeah.
And I was wondering about the fact that the CEO of TGI Fridays put out a statistic that only 28% of Americans even eat out more than like twice a year. So, having laughed on, it seems to me that after the pandemic, dining out, even though it's a way of life, is now a luxury and not a necessity.
1,000%. And so, the first question, the industry was very different when I started 25 years ago. Very toxic. It was extremely toxic. And so it was sort of, you had to assimilate into that environment if you wanted to survive. Like, I mean, chefs would burn you if you messed up. Everybody was an alcoholic. You know, it was really hard. You know.
I cooked from age 12.
Yeah, so you get it. I feel like when we created Dandelion 15 years ago, we created, and I'm not saying we were ahead of the curve, but we wanted to create a kitchen, an environment that wasn't that respected our team and that cultivated just a love of doing what we do. And I really feel like we did that, which was amazing. When the Garrison opened, it got the best of me. I was harsh on my cooks, but they also, I never really crossed the lines like I had seen previously. But it was hard. It was a lot of pressure, and I became a chef that was seeking perfection in every single element. And honestly, I feel like the pandemic saved that perspective. It got rid of that perspective for me.
Perfectionism is hard.
Now, it's a very, very positive kitchen. I don't care that I might be the loudest one laughing in the restaurant. I don't care. I think people that you can taste that. You can taste it's coming from somebody that's actually enjoying being present, It's dramatically different. And I'm thankful for that for sure. The other question was
Too small to fail, equal pay. I worked at Four Seasons.
Yeah.
Making $19 an hour being abused.
Yeah.
Watching my housemate who was a waiter taking home $1,400 to $2,900 a night.
It's tough. It's tough to watch, my sous chef who just had a baby. He deserves the world. He is one of the most loyal and talented human beings, and he has given a lot to make that restaurant run with me. And we don't talk about what the servers make, and that's it's tough. Mm-hmm. I think the industry as a whole, that status quo of that formula is in a way broken. But I don't know what the answer is. I think people have tried it. People have tried to go to that. It's all in the menu cost. In Europe, that's a lot of places, they won't take tips. But for some reason, it's just nobody can find the answer here.
And now we have tipping fatigue.
Yes.
Well, because the prices are so much higher on top.
Now restaurants are putting in service charges that they're not really even really describing what it is. Mm-hmm. I don't understand that. That was just on the news. It was like people are getting their bill and seeing like a 4% service charge. Yeah, back of house, or even just like operating costs. And it's, I don't know, like that's a pretty telling indictment that things are off the rails, I feel like. Whereas normally you would just raise everything a certain percentage.
Well, it's the kiss of death. You can't lower the quality of food or raise the prices. So what are you going to do?
Right.
I mean, you can do anything you want.
Right, yeah, true. No, and that's the thing. It's, there's a lot of, people don't want to raise prices. I'm sort of unapologetically charging what I need to now. I just have to. If I want my crew to have a job next year, my fry oil is $100 a box, and it used to be $30. I have to make that up, or else we're all jobless. It's tough. It's tough. I'm just like probably everybody else, flying by the seat of my pants, trying to figure it out. Yeah. I don't even know if I answered your question. I'm sorry.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
You have a question right there.
It's not a question, but I go with Melissa back to the old Chatham Sheep Herding Company in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And what I want you to know is you've said many wonderful things about her tonight. She says many wonderful things about you.
Oh, thank you. She, yeah. It's, I got lucky. She's a good friend. She's like a big sister. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi. Christian, thank you very much. It's really enlightening from a parent whose son was totally into culinary until it pretty much destroyed his life.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about all these shows that absolutely glorify being a chef? You make shit.
Yeah.
And it's a destructive lifestyle.
It's awful.
I feel horrible because he was so passionate about it,
Yeah.
and it was his life.
Yeah.
But it almost took his life
Yeah.
many times.
Oh yeah.
And it's horrible as a parent to watch, saying your kid loves this art form, loves it, and you want to support him, but
Yeah.
you can't
It destroys
because
it. Yeah.
it's so destructive.
Yeah.
And I congratulate you and the other chefs like you, which are 1 in a million, that make it and are successful and have a really good balance on their life and the reality of how hard it is to make a living being and doing what you love. So applauds to you. It's
How is he still cooking? No. Yeah. And that's the thing. And I wrote about that is you end up it chews you out, spits you out, and then it chews you up again, spits you out, and you do that over and over again, and then you run into them in Home Depot, and they're out. It's such a weird dynamic. You see, like I see old chefs. It's just like in the real world, and they talk about how much better it is, and like you wonder if you could not work 16 hours a day, and what that would be like. Yeah, I mean, it almost killed me. I'm not gonna lie, opening that restaurant. Yeah, I was close. Like it's a lot. I feel like one of the most validating things that I carry with me is when we have a lot of long-term employees, people that have been with us for almost a decade. Incentivizing and respecting those positions, but hearing them say like they were done with cooking and they're just like they're alive again in that kitchen is incredibly validating, and I try to honor that as much as possible. 2019, I can see where I might have turned a few people off of cooking. Again, it's just a different animal now, and I'm cultivating what we did when we started Dandelion. I'm creating that kitchen that like I want to be in, and I'm not worried about perfection. It's just it's not, yeah. Well, if he ever wants to come cook, you let me know. I'll take care of him.
There is a chapter in the book that we chose not to read today, but maybe you should have your son read that chapter when it comes up. Okay, so I think we are almost at a time to draw
we want to draw a name?
Unless there's anybody who has another question or any feedback, we just want to make sure that we're honoring everyone's time and also taking questions if you have any. One last question. Go for it.
Having eaten at your restaurant and love it, it's one of our favorite. Pre-COVID, you had more entrees.
Yeah.
And now you've gone to the small plates.
Yeah.
Are you going to change that?
So it's funny. I was just talking to this with my crew this past week. How we did just. So we were very small plate oriented, but we always had like 3 or 4 larger plates. We got to the point where we started to realize we were down 2 cooks. You can't find cooks anymore. We were down 2 cooks, and we needed to simplify. And so we tried to create. So we have like maybe 14 small plates now. We've built it up. I would love to go back to doing some more bigger plates. Right now the format's working, where I do get the occasional we'll be back when you offer a full meal, but I feel like, if you can balance that, honestly, like if I did offer an entree, it would be the price of probably 3 of those smaller plates. And I like the idea of people trying 3 different things and sharing, and you see it happen and people are passing. I do love the idea of multiple plates, but I do know people also miss entrees. We are increasing some sizes, so like my lobster fettuccine is pretty much an entree. It's pretty big, and so we're sort of like implementing that into the server, just kind of describing the dishes. They sort of go from lighter to heavier. But we did, when we made the decision to sort of streamline into more small plates, it was we were desperate. I mean, we had 3 people working 5 positions, essentially. Yeah, that's another problem, but yeah.
You're a poster child to open a restaurant for,
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because you do it for the right reasons. Because there's a million reasons why you shouldn't be doing it. And yet,
there are a million
and yet
reasons.
you're back to the reason why you should do it.
Yeah.
And so that's why we need more of you in Maine, because otherwise we won't have a restaurant scene much longer. I mean, there's not a day I don't open up Eater or the main dish from the Port and Press and read about 3 closings.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you see all of that constantly, and you're in the business, so you're hearing it before we even hear it. But
I mean, perception is reality. People see full parking lots and they see full restaurants, but the reality of the situation is we're all about a month and a half off of losing it all. We're just, we're trying to figure out this new sort of era of dining, and
and I think consumers are too. Like you said, we're all trying to figure it out too. Like, why are we spending so much more? Why were there 4% charge? Like we're trying to harken back to the olden days when we went out and had a budget and we had a great time, and now it truly is a luxury.
It is. It's been blown wide open. Let's just hang on.
Yeah, we're gonna hang in.
We got another month and a half to cook, and then we'll reassess.
We'll check back in with you. Well, we got a gift card to pull out because somebody is going to be a very lucky diner eating one of those lobster fettuccinis. So, let's have Fiona. Do you want to pick it out? Do you want to?
Yeah.
Okay,
come on up.
Come on up with Dad. You can pick it up.
Here, come up over here.
This poor girl's been up since what? 6?
Yeah.
Gone to school.
Pick her up from school. Please note the Nirvana T-shirt. Raising kids right.
Thanks. Awesome. Here you go, sweetie. You can give that to whomever wins it.
Oh, awesome.
All right, we need some rocker music here. Some sidecar radio.
Oh boy. What do we got? Mary Levitt. Yeah.
Oh, yay!
Right.
Mary, not only do you get a gift card, you also get a hug and a high five. Because you stayed through the entire night and you're going to enjoy a really lovely meal. Yay.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank
I'll see you at the restaurant,
Don't
huh?
fall. Yeah, you bet.
I'll see you soon.
And believe me, Mary, he will do his research before you
I'll look
take
for your
your
name.
seat. He'll be Googling
I'll
you.
be looking.
All right.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, we want to say a huge thank you. Unless you want to do a little bit of a show and tell, do some singing. And,
I'm good.
okay.
I'm
Okay,
good.
just giving you a
Thank you
chance.
guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you.
It's awesome.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thanks, folks. If you want to come down and chat with our front lineman here, go for it.